are back. After Reckoning, joined by Jacob from the Valley Labor Reporters. Jacob, welcome to the show.
Matt, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Always happy to be with y'all.
Yeah, I mean, we got a lot to get to today. I mean, we've been covering and following y'all's lead on this strike at Warrior Met. But we wanted to bring you back on because there's been a lot of, because when a strike goes on this long, right? There's a lot of just like making sure that people have their eyes on it, know ways that they can support it. And for folks who are watching this on YouTube, we have a link in the show description of ways you can help support the strike fund. But there's a lot of efforts to sort of making sure people know that this is still going on. But there's been a lot of developments over the past couple of weeks, specifically legally regarding Warrior Met. So we wanted to bring you in to sort of help people understand what the state of this strike is.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate it. And so I'm happy to talk about that. And the state of, one of the big stories is like about the injunctions recently. Mm-hmm. But to back up and give everybody just a little bit more background before we go there, strikes are won or lost by like power and its exertion. And so the primary function of a strike is to take revenue and profits from the company by withholding labor. Without our brain and muscle, not a single wheel can turn, right? That kind of thing. And so one way to assess how the strike is going is to look at how much it's costing the company. And it's actually costing the company like a lot of money. The Alabama media has, they're basically running with Warrior Met's numbers, which in their last quarterly report, they said that the strike has cost them $6.9 million. And that's what they attribute to like increased security, negotiations, et cetera. But that doesn't count the cost that they attribute to idling an entire mine, which is $9.3 million. And they compare the revenue from this year, which is $38.4 million, to last year where they had a loss of $14.4 million. And so that looks actually pretty good, but you shouldn't be comparing this year amid like record high metallurgical coal prices to last year, where you had absolutely plummeting demand on top of a pandemic. What you should be looking at is 2 years ago about this time. So how are their numbers right now compared to 2 years ago? They're actually down $400 million from where they were this time in 2019. And met coal prices have never been higher. So the strike is costing them a lot, right? But they're not reacting like it's costing them a lot, which is very, very scary, I think, for a lot of people, especially the folks that are actually putting their lives and livelihoods on the line for this. The last contract that Warrior Met offered the union, it gave seniority to scabs, and it did not even guarantee the striking miners their jobs back. So that's not even a deal worth voting on. And so they didn't vote on it, and they've said that at the bargaining table, the miners aren't worth what they are getting now. I mean, the like absolute disdain that the company is treating these striking workers with is gross. And they're treating the scabs like royalty on top of all that. They have given them box seats at Alabama games on top of the premium pay that, scabs always get. And they're getting paid lunches, which the striking miners did not get under their old contract. So, all this to say, the company's really dug in their heels. And I think, and a lot of the strikers think that they want to get rid of the union. We're seeing an effort to decertify Exxon workers in Texas. David, you may know more about that than I do. They've been locked out for months, and I don't doubt that at some point we see that at Warrior Met. But the financial report that they recently released may give us some clues as to why they are acting like this. And it says that they are leveraging their working capital, which is assets that they've got minus the debts that they have, to stay afloat and keep, make sure everything stays above board. And I don't know a whole lot about that working capital and how all that works, to be honest, but I do know that they've got investors at trillion-dollar investing firms, and if they have been able to convince the investors at, say, BlackRock or Fidelity Investments, where they also have some investors, that it would be worth it in the long term to kill the union, then financially speaking, they've got the upper hand, and that means that, the only other way to bring to bear some pressure on Warrior Met is through other means other than the financial means. And we know that the law is stacked against workers in this country. And so that's a good segue into the injunctions. And, they had, there have been a myriad of injunctions basically since the start of the strike. First, it limited picket lines to 11 people, and then it went down to 6, and then it went back up to 10. And that was the progression, I think. And now they have completely banned their right to ban them from picketing in front of Warrior Met entrances. Totally, they cannot be there. They've had contractors come and bulldoze the tents that the striking miners had set up. And through all of this, we haven't seen any of the Alabama working class defenders log on. And it's really, really pissed me off. I mean, how, the number of segments on talk radio in the last 8 months about, Dr. Seuss or whatever the hell, or crazy college students, they would be innumerable. And I have not heard one single segment. I listen to talk radio a lot. I have not heard one single segment about the strike that I have not been on the air for. Sometimes they'll have me on as guests, and when I talk about this particular thing, they don't berate me and act like I'm stupid. But if I'm not on the air, they don't talk about it, which is just it's crazy. I mean, think about what's going on here. Over the course of this 5-year contract, an analysis by the union said that $1.1 billion was taken out of Brookwood and sent to New York investors in the form of, wage cuts and healthcare and safety cuts and all that. And now you've got scabs from all over the country getting premium pay to come to our state and take their jobs. And where's that money going to go? It's going to go to these other states. It's not going to go to Brookwood, Alabama. And they're spending all this money training people that don't know what the hell they're doing. We can see that from the pollution in the river nearby. There have been a few times that the river has literally turned black because the scabs don't know how to do their damn job. And you've got the government coming in and saying you can't even picket. Amidst all this, even in the last 3 weeks when they have completely banned picketing, you've still got people talking about cancel culture. 2 days after the injunction to ban picketing, a talk host on one of the stations that we're on wrote an article about, and I had to go back and look this up to see exactly what it is because it was so stupid, saying that we are in the digital French Revolution and cancel culture is the guillotine.
Oh yeah, baby. I'm Robespierre.
And it was literally about culture war stories that you'd expect to have seen on skeptic YouTube channels in 2015. It was about incidences in Oberlin College and Cambridge. This is an Alabama talk radio host talking about Oberlin. Who gives a shit? I don't. No. And on Twitter, she had the gall to say that concern about one thing isn't mutually exclusive from another, which I'm like, okay, well, that's great. If you care about both of these things, maybe you should talk about the other thing. And she never replied, and she never talked about the other thing. And this is the same thing that Emily Jashinsky said. She's some hack at the Federalist. She also does Rising now. And when I challenged, she replied to Glenn Greenwald on Twitter or something about how it's been saddening to see the labor movement turn from a genuinely working class movement to a yuppie one. I was like, okay, so Miss, apparently about the labor movement. Where are you talking about the miners' strike that's in its 8 months and where picketers have been banned from their right to freely assemble and speak their minds? She deflected and said that they talked about Bessemer, and also she did one podcast about frontline workers. The only Bessemer article that I could find in the Federalist basically gloated about the results and said that the union was too much in line with the Democratic Party, which I told y'all that, Bessemer is a city that voted 70% for Joe Biden. And black women in the state of Alabama voted 98% for Doug Jones in 2017. And this Amazon facility is majority black women. Okay, so this is not like the whatever critiques you want to make about that campaign. The issue is obviously not they're too Democrat, right? That just doesn't track with anything happening on the ground. And so anyway, that's the notes that I had on the miners' strike and the things that I wanted to bring up. So, it's just I'm so frustrated with because I mean. The gall that they have to keep talking about cancel culture amidst the state, the state coming down and say you can't be on public property and protest your employer. The gall that they've got to continue talking about cancel culture amidst that and to not mention it. I mean, I could not imagine being such boot-licking, scab-loving scum. Like, holy crap.
I don't know, David, if you can look at my most recent posted tweet. You inspired me to post something that's been bugging me for a while, which is that WillWhit, who is this little youngster, kind of Dennis Prager realizes he can't be the face of PragerU forever. He's got this little guy, WillWhit, to come do it. And a few months ago, he said he had tweeted this out. So it's not like they're unaware of BlackRock, for instance, right? Your future in America is being destroyed and controlled by BlackRock. And this was a response to BlackRock is buying every single family house they can. The story is about BlackRock buying up all the property, right? But nowhere are they, again, when they could be supporting these workers against BlackRock, right? And it's even better, they're coal workers, right? They should be all over the fossil fuel angle of this too. And of course, they are for the bosses. Fundamentally, that's who they're always going to be for.
Well, I mean, this is a metallurgical coal mine. It's used in the production of steel. It's not actually like energy stuff. Fair. I mean, like, I can't, like, I don't know how you're like. There are so many good ways to talk about this as a conservative and keep your like bootlicking cred or whatever you want. And they refuse to do it. They absolutely refuse to do it. And I mentioned that the way that they're going to have to win this strike is to bring other pressure to bear than financial pressure, it seems to me. And talk radio hosts in this state were able to kill a toll bridge in Mobile, like just by them being pissed about it, This was a project in Mobile, which is good, I mean, tolls are bad, right? Okay, so good on the talk radio hosts, sure. But they were able to do that almost single-handedly. And because I don't know, for whatever reason, they took an interest in it. And so it like, I believe that if you could get even just one of these, dumbasses on talk radio to really pick up the mantle and push, push Warrior Met, get their audiences pissed off about it, talk to the political leaders in the state to put some pressure on. I really think that if they wanted to do something for, I mean, a lot of these families are conservative. If they wanted to do something for conservative working families in rural Alabama, they could do it. And they could help bring back $1.1 billion to this rural community from, these, fancy, smancy, liberal New York elites and give it back to good working families in Alabama. But like, they won't do it. And I mean, they have only Yellowhammer News is this right-wing media outlet, and the only things that they have published about the site has literally been reprints of Warrior Met press releases. Wow. I mean, it's insane.
Well, on this, I don't want to come because I don't know well enough at like AL.com, right? But I wanted to share this article right quick with everybody because I think that the way that even this injunction again, and like if people miss this the first time, you gotta understand what's going on. This judge is telling people that they cannot exercise their First Amendment right to protest their employer who has been abusing them for years and years, right? This is like you get worked about free speech. This is clear as day,
right?
But this article here, like in the headlines well enough, right, it says striking Alabama coal miners as a judge to prohibit guns for those driving past picket line, right? Which is very reasonable. And I think that
my picture's still up on the YouTube, just for the
Yeah, I got it
for the
moved
record.
just now. Yep. Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, appreciate it.
Yeah. So so the headline I think got changed a little bit earlier today. But if you go through this article, it takes a very long time for them to start actually talking about what's being done to the workers, like the threats that they've endured, the fact that people have driven into the picket line with trucks. Instead, you're getting all this kind of talk about property damage to people's cars. Right. And that's like all the way up until the very, 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 very end. Right. Oh, the Union thugs came and they hurt a car. Meanwhile, like people are literally getting, there's video of people on the picket line having trucks just flying right into them. So, like even on this level right here, this is news, supposed to be unbiased, etc. Like the kind of both sidesing of this thing is making it seem like, potentially some property damage done to a car here or there. Right. Versus like actual people, slamming trucks into people standing on the road. Those are two very, very different things, in my opinion. So like the media criticism is, like beyond people, if you're not getting it from talk radio, and then even the kind of neutral arbiters right here are trying to make it seem like, well, both sides have like legitimate grievances with each other, is ridiculous.
Oh yeah, well, so there's a local news station that went with so Warrior Met, and Kim Kelly has been all over this. She's been doing a really good job. She recently put out an article about this big press event that Warrior Met did about the violence on the picket line coming from the striking workers. And there, CBS 42 is a local TV station, and they came out and did some picket line interviews about this. And the striking miners told me, and which I emailed the guy and tweeted at him like multiple times, and he never confirmed or denied it. So I'm just going to assume it's true, because if it wasn't true, he would have told me, right? They told me that he and his cameraman were both almost hit by scabs going too fast across the picket line. Easy. And the story was still about how the striking miners are too violent. And it's like, dog, you were almost hit, man. And you're like, how do you still go with that story?
Yeah.
Like, how? Oh my God. I can't, like, it's crazy to me. So you're absolutely right that the neutral arbiters in the state are not even properly both sidesing it. I mean, you could say, the proper both sides is that it, like, the factual reporting of what's happening is there were no reported instances that I'm aware of any property damage from union folks until they started hitting them with cars. And now, before and after that, there were like jack rocks and stuff. And so, whatever, that's fine. That's all good. Jack rocks are good. But it's the proper like neutral reporting would be like, okay, look, there were people that were hit by cars, and in some of the instances where the Warrior Met put out this big long video about the violence, the miners have videos, some of those videos in full, and in some of them you actually see like, this car that they blow out, that they knocked out the window of, they tried to hit somebody. So it's just and nobody in the quote unquote neutral arbiter type press, AL.com, CBS 42, all these local news stations, none of them are reporting it like that. All of them are putting the quote unquote union violence at the forefront. They're not talking about, in these articles about union violence, about the more systemic violence that, stealing money from natural resources that are ours as Alabamians, frankly, and pulling it and giving it to billionaires in New York. That's it's not contextualized. It's astounding, and it's even worse in the conservative press somehow. But yeah, you're absolutely right, David.